All right, you guys, so welcome to this morning's level 1-2 practice. This morning, we are going to be focusing greatly on paying attention to our body. So I can't even believe that I'm about to do this. I know, Carol, you're totally going to laugh. I am not going to play music, which for me, one time I did that unintentionally, but this is intentional. I really want there to be as minimal distractions from our physical body as possible. This month, we're going to kind of make a shift out of the cerebral, out of the study, out of the let's think about all the things that we are going to do to draw closer to Christ. And we are going to do physical discipleship, physically drawing nearer to Christ. What does it look like to tune into our body? Because Christ is in our body. We are in our body. We are experiencing the world in our body. Jesus refers to us specifically as his hands and feet. He didn't say just words or mouthpieces or sermon writers or message givers. He said hands and feet. That is action, that is doing, that is movement. And so we're going to look at, especially in this summer season, which is very yang. If you know the theory or philosophy of yin yang, there is this balance of things that are opposite in our world, but they complement one another. And so in that philosophy and in spiritual philosophy and just in nature, we see there is, as Ecclesiastes would say, a time to reap, a time to sow, a time to, right? There's a time and a purpose for everything. And in the summer, it's very yang in nature. It's very active. It's very heated. We, for some reason, place New Year's resolutions in the winter because the calendar works that way, but we don't work that way. We tend to work out and do and move and express in more of the spring leading into the summertime, more so than we do fall leading into the winter time. And then January is like the dead of winter. The deepest part of winter that one can experience is January and February. And so it's like the worst time to do it. Whereas April, May, June, it is the time. So I want to encourage you today, if there is something physically that you experience and you join Paul in his, why do I do what I don't want to do? Cry out. That is a part in scripture. If you're unfamiliar with it, Paul talks about God's grace and the power of God in us. And he says, I don't know. Why do I do what I don't want to do? I find that I desire to do good, but I can't execute. Right? And we all have that with something. Generally, when it comes to the physical body and health and well-being, diet culture has changed health and well-being into being a healthy weight or just eating healthy. And while those are important expressions in our health, they're not the most important expressions in our health. What's going on in our soul will then translate out to our body. So what I would love for you to do today as we start to shift our focus this month into the physical body by kicking off with a full presence in the body focus. What is one of those things? Why do I do that I don't want to do that you would like to lay before the Lord? Here's what I don't mean. I don't mean make a goal about it. I don't mean let's decide an eating plan with the Lord. Like I'm saying, just take that thing. Maybe you've become accustomed to having a glass of wine every night before bed, and that's something that you're starting to feel, it rules me more than I choose it every night. Maybe a way you are consuming food in a way that is not bringing nourishment to your body, but is feeding your desire for comfort. Two different motivations for consuming a substance, two very different motivations. Maybe it is you are putting way too much emphasis and importance on working out. And maybe your attention needs to shift over here to more calm and meditation or time with a friend or a family member. What is that thing that you would like to place before the Lord today as we bring awareness into our bodies? So as we bring this awareness into our bodies, I'm going to teach on Philippians 4 today, because in his introduction, into Philippians 4, where it's the famous chapter on in everything by prayer and supplication, bring all your desires before the Lord, bring all your pains, bring all your hurts, bring all your concerns, bring all your worries, bring them to him, and the peace of God will guard your heart and mind. Now, he says, bring them to him, and then his peace will come and guard your heart and mind. So one, peace is our guard. Substance is not our guard. Having that thing is not our guard. Getting workout in that day is not our guard. Shame, as much as we are familiar with it and tend to go to it, it's not our guard. Our husbands, our wives, our kids, none of those are our guard. Being with and intimate with the Lord and the peace that brings, that's what guards our heart and mind. And so at the beginning of Philippians 4, Paul says this. He says, my dear and precious friends, whom I deeply love, you have truly become my glorious joy and crown reward. Now, this is the sentence we're going to focus on. Now, arise in the fullness of your union with the Lord. What does it look like in my physical body to arise in the fullness of my union with the Lord? Because if I have that, I have everything. I've honestly prayed for my children their entire lives. God, that they may know you. If they know you and are intimately in relationship with you, they will be fine. I don't care if they, at the end of the day, I don't care if they go to college, I don't care what their job is, I don't care who their spouse is, I don't care about any of that. If they know you, then they're going to be fine. They're going to be just fine because they're with you and you are their ever-present guard, not me, moms. Like that's an identity issue for us, right? We are not their ever-present guard. God is their ever-present guard. And if they know him, they're fine, right? So we all know that we're to let ourselves let go of anxious thoughts. We're to meditate. We're to eat good and healthy foods and drink water and get probiotics and move and walk and do yoga. And we know all of those things. Lack of knowledge is not our issue. Some of the things that we need to learn to work with the rhythm of is our body. Because one of the things that will begin to happen is as we seek God with all of our hearts, our mind and our body, as we seek to raise the vibrational frequency out of lower vibrational frequency experiences like lies and shame and guilt and lack of strength and lack of courage, as we begin to draw closer to the Lord and he's pouring down wisdom and revelation and goodness and all these things into our lives, those lower vibrational frequency emotions and experiences, they're starting to rise up. They're starting to literally raise in the vibrational frequency that is measurable in our person. And what's going to happen when that starts to happen is our brain, which is wired for survival, it's not wired to evolve and raise up. It's wired for survival. And that's good. That's really good. And we need to work with that wiring for survival as we begin to grow and transform. The word transformation means to completely change, a complete change. We think of the transformation from a, what's it called? Caterpillar to a butterfly. That's a complete transformation. And that's what God's doing with us. He's taking our flesh and his spirit, bringing them together, and he is drawing us more and more and more and more and more into his image. We are made in his image and we have his image in us, and then we mix with his spirit and he just starts to make us look exactly like Jesus, behave and think like and move like and do all those things like Jesus, and yet we're still us because we're a face of God. We're God to other people, right? We may be the only aspect of God they ever get to meet. That's why we're his hands and feet. And so he's pouring this into us. And so there's a little bit of the darker part of us, our shadow side, if you will, that's going to fight that because it's wired for evolution. So your amygdala, I'm starting to talk about anatomy, so I got to look at the clock because this is the stuff I love to talk about. Your amygdala is this little almond-shaped structure on either side of your brain that is wired to create a response in you. It's tied to your memories and it's tied to your emotions. Every single thought you have has a a chronological memory, an emotional memory, and a physical memory. Every single thought you have has three aspects to it. A chronological when this happened memory, some of those are really off for those who have experienced trauma, a emotional memory, and a physical memory. Every single thought you have has those tied to it. And so when you start to move out of old patterns, your body will go, no, 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 keep things the same. Remain comfortable. This is where survival happens. This is what we know how to function in, right? And your body will begin to fight that. So as those frequencies raise, you have this pre-programmed response that as you begin to step out of and go, you know, I think I'm interacting in an unhealthy way with this alcohol. I think I'm interacting in an unhealthy way with my husband. I am not going to be as offendable when he says these things because I'm going to trust that he loves me, and I'm going to start to move out of that. And what's going to happen is the manifestation of that don't do this that your body starts to do will start to come up in the form of like aches and pains. And what's happening is that physical energy of that pre-programmed response dying, those actual structures of thoughts in your brain dying, they're going to start to manifest themselves physically. Those lower vibrational frequency work themselves out in sometimes the forms of aches and pains in our body. And so we're going to kind of tune into our body. And as we start to tune into our body, we'll start to learn and go, okay, so why am I feeling so anxious right now? Why is my gut so tight? Let me kind of think about this, why my gut might be so tight, right? If we start to use our body cues rather than tuning our body out and doing everything in our brain, which is, you're not really doing everything in your brain. Your body is involved in the thinking process. We just are not consciously aware of it. When we bring our body into the conscious process of our aware, awakened thoughts, we can use our body cues to help us process through uncomfortable thoughts. So one of the things that we must do is we must let go and release. These are a few things that I want to say before we start to physically practice. The things that we are able to be free and liberated, and I mean that word in every term that it means, liberation. When we are liberated from these chains of the thoughts that we have, we are able to completely let go. So here are the things that we can let go of. If it's not a fruit of God's Spirit, we covered those in our last couple of classes. If it's not a fruit of God's Spirit, if it's not in line with what we know about our salvation and how much God loves us and that he completely took care of all of our sin on the cross, if it's not in line with God, if it's not in line with his character, his word, or his voice, his character, we know him to be compassionate and kind and tolerant and faithful and full of love and full of justice, right? If it's not in line with his character, his word is something that we test something against when we say, wait, I feel like God's calling me to do this. If it's against what his word says, it might not be him calling you to do that. Or his voice, who you known him to tell you to be. And right, his word says in John 10 that we as his people and him as our shepherd, we know his voice. So when the fruit of his spirit, his character, his word, his voice, when that all aligns, we kind of know it's him talking to us. So if some of the thoughts that you're having aren't in line with the fruit of the spirit, aren't in line with your salvation, they aren't in line with his voice, his word, who you know him to be, if you can't do anything about it, if you've done what you can, you are free to not think about that thing anymore. You owe it nothing. You don't have to dwell on it. And that's what Philippians 4, which we're going to teach on today, is all about. As shame, fear, guilt, lies, as these lower vibrational frequencies things start to rise up, your body's going to get uncomfortable. And so we're going to tune into our body today because all of these things are happening in your body. Your faith is getting worked out in your body. God chose to make his dwelling place your body. And so it's a very important skill to learn to tune in to what's going on in your body, because it will tell you and communicate with you in all kinds of ways that you can't rationalize. See, story and narrative are what we tend to do in our brain, right? I had an experience like this. I think I told some of you the other day, my dog woke up in the middle of the night just gasping, what I thought was gasping for air for like 60 seconds. Turns out there's this thing called reverse sneezing in dogs, and it is very scary to watch them do. And they do it for like 30, 45, 60 seconds. And it's them, instead of sneezing and exhaling really big like we do, they kind of violently and over again try to inhale air to clear out their sinuses because of the way that their kind of little noses and face work. In this period of time that Peaches was doing that in the middle of the night, I went through, what if she's dying? What if her trachea collapsed? What if, I don't know how to do CPR and first aid on a dog. It's a 30-minute drive to the vet. All of these what if scenarios. And then of course I couldn't fall back asleep because I'm like, oh, my baby, what would I do without Peaches? I just started storying. And it turned out the next day, you guys, I talked to a vet tech and all that stuff, a half of Benadryl and let her sneeze. She's fine. That's literally all it was. But we take these situations, these things that are going on around us, and we story them and we narrate them and we what if them and we ruminate on them, right? And we don't consciously know we're doing it, but our body does. Your body knows you're doing it. And when you learn to tune into your body will tell you faster than your brain that you're doing it. But if you constantly tune out or numb out of your body, you will struggle to make awareness of that. So let's start in a child's pose. Go ahead and scoot everything out. Again, I had mentioned we're not going to use music today. We're going to tune into our body. And we're going to talk about what it means when yoga instructors say really silly things like breathe into your hips. What does that even mean? Can't breathe into my hips. I have no lung tissue in my hips, nothing like that. But we're going to really tune into our body today. And this is the most appropriate class to do it that I teach each week, because in a level 1, you slow down. So I think it's tempting for the yogi to think, well, level 1 physically doesn't challenge me enough, so I don't want to practice that. It's not, the purpose of it for an advanced practitioner is not to challenge yourself physically as much to challenge yourself more spiritually and mentally. That is just as much exercise as physical movement is, if not sometimes more important. So child's pose is where we're going to start, because it kind of cocoons you in. Your arms create blinders for your eyes. Light gets pushed out. Your forehead is face down. You're literally directing your gaze towards your belly button. If child's pose is not comfortable for you, come to the fetal position on your side and curl in. Or maybe neither of those work for you and you'd like to start just flat on your back. Wherever you're starting, let's go ahead and start the soundtrack for our class, and that is your breath. For the moment to start the soundtrack of your breath, just tune into it. No need to judge it. No need to change it. Let noticing it be enough. Does your side body move when you breathe? Just noticing. Don't worry about changing it or deepening it yet. Sometimes if you're a yoga practitioner, you just want to take a deep breath. Indulge in that, absolutely, if you want to. But was your motivation the desire for a deep breath, or did you feel like I was telling you you should change it? Notice what motivates you to engage in your body. Just let your breathing be natural and notice how you breathe. And that awareness of tuning into your breath may just cause you to desire and therefore draw in a big deep breath followed by a big deep exhale. And then as you cultivate this breath, as you begin to now consciously decide to deepen it, your brain starts to fire a bunch of synapses because now you're voluntarily choosing to engage with your phrenic nerve, the nerve that is involved in respiration. It's generally involuntary. We don't have to tell ourselves to breathe, but now that we're telling ourselves to breathe, we're tapping into the autonomic nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system that calms us down. So envision placing the tongue on the roof of your mouth and starting to deepen that inhale only through the nose, and then track visually with your mind's eye the air going in your nose and down the back of your throat, through your trachea, down into your lungs. See the diaphragm pull the air down into the belly, pushing the organs down towards the pubic bone. How far can you get those organs pushed down, pulling in that breath? The diaphragm pushing down and creating space, the ribs opening up. And then as you exhale, all of that wraps back around the spine, first by just kind of relaxing and surrendering. And then you can re-engage the muscles to pull in towards the belly and then up into the lung space as you contract the diaphragm to massage the air all the way out, all the way out, all the way out. And then sip in that long air again. Just watch that process for a few moments in your mind's eye. Paul says, don't be pulled in different directions or worried about a thing. Be saturated in prayer throughout each day, offering your faith-filled requests before God with overflowing gratitude. Tell him every detail of your life. Then God's wonderful peace that transcends human understanding will make the answers known to you through Jesus Christ. So, keep your thoughts continually fixed on all that is authentic and real, honorable and admirable, beautiful and respectful, pure and holy, merciful and kind. And fasten your thoughts on every glorious work of God, praising him always. Follow the example of all that we have imparted to you, and the God of peace will be with you in all things. I want to say, in the context of a yoga practice, the way to continually pray is to be mindful of your breath. It's a prayer without words, if you will. So we're going to work really diligently today to move with our breath guiding our practice. So if you're on your side, gently make your way on the next inhale to pressing yourself up to a tabletop. And same from child's pose. I want to encourage you today. Today is not about physical challenge. Today is about the challenge of letting your breath go before every movement. So you will be off in your movement from when I tell you to move, because I am like a GPS. I am calling the movement so you know what's coming, not so that you know when to move. So that you know what's coming, not that so that you know when to move. And one thing that might be helpful is if you, in this tabletop, close your eyes and listen to my directives. Don't watch me move, because there is visually something that happens that you'll just begin to move with me. Mirror neurons are real, and they affect our movement and our facial expressions and how we begin to mimic others. So close your eyes and listen to me this class. Let's exercise our brain-body connection. So on your inhale, your inhale will initiate your belly dropping, and you'll look up and your tailbone will go up. And then on your exhale, draw your chin to your chest, your sacrum down, and round out on your exhale. You'll notice you're making it smaller and you're massaging out all the air. Inhale, when you need more air, start to let that belly go down. You're making space for more air. Look up, shoulders pull back down towards your side body. And then when you need to exhale, push the ground away from you with your arms and round out. Bring your pubic bone closer to your belly button. When you need more air, soften the belly down and take it in. Pull the shoulder blades back. When you're full, which means you may hold that at the top, hold it until you're full, full, full. And then when you're ready to exhale, this exhale starts and then you move. The breath goes just a little bit, 2 steps before you. Now you can stay right here. If you're brand new to yoga, stay right here. If you have some base of yoga, some arm strengthening movement in your regular practice, then do me a favor, and next time you come neutral, step your knees back about 6 to 9 inches. So you're a little less than a tabletop here. And on the inhale, this time, drop your hips and look up. Keep your belly button engaged. This is the inhale. Hold until you fill up all the breath. Exhale, push the ground away from you, push the hips back towards the feet. Get all the air out, child's pose. You're still pushing the hands into the mat. And then your inhale initiates you to pull back with your arms like you're doing a pull-up, look up, and then exhale, press back. One more time. Inhale, look up. And this time your exhale comes through tucking your toes under, lifting your hips high, and coming to a downward facing dog. So for those who practice, downward facing dog is a kind of a stiff beginning pose. And for those of you who may be new, downward facing dog is just an awkward kind of a pose. So you want to make sure you're in that kind of well-spaced upside down V. So if your feet are too far back, you're in like this half plank thing. And if they're too far forward, you're in a half forward fold. So you want to kind of find your sweet spot. Your heels do not have to touch the ground, but your shoulder blades do come around kind of towards the front and then down back towards your side hips. Then your gaze, take it through your knees. Let the back of your neck go. Now in this upside down shape, I want you to send the breath. Let's talk about what that looks like in this upside down shape. If at any time your wrists start to hurt you, you can come to what's called dolphin. In this upside down shape, I want you to take your mind's eye and your attention to the back side of your neck. So I've moved out of the pose so I can talk to you, but you stay in this upside down shape. The back side of your neck, we're looking for that to get really long, and we're looking for gravity to pull and traction the spine. So to do that, you have to pull the shoulder blades back. You have to push the hands into the mat like you're pushing the ground away from you. That will activate your belly and it'll take the weight off your shoulders. And then as you take long, deep breaths, take your mind's eye to the back side of your neck and soften your chin down towards your chest, and the awareness on that space in the body and the execution of your breath will help to release that area. The muscles will begin to turn off and your neck will begin to traction. At any time, if this is too long of a downward facing dog, drop to your knees, bring your forehead to the mat and take a child's pose. But send the breath, meaning your awareness and your attention while you're inhaling and exhaling to that space for 3, 2, 1. Everybody drop to your knees, bring your hips to your heels, and find child's pose. When we tap into that phrenic nerve, when we voluntarily begin to start breathing through those spaces in our body, we are telling them to let go of the tension. We often have tension in these very specific areas of our body because they're holding memories. They're holding experiences. And as we bring our awakened, aware thoughts with the power of our breath to release tension to that space, we begin to release that experience. That may come with physical sensation. You may want to start crying. You may feel a twinge of pain there. It's the body releasing and that experience, and it's helping you to process and file away that experience. Sometimes we really struggle to forgive and let go and process memories and hurts of our past. And until we move as a form of processing, it often just kind of stays stuck in our body. Talk therapy is wonderful. I am a fan of it. I am part of it. My whole family goes to therapists for the most part. Yet when we add movement to that process, and breath and awareness, we really do file away experiences that let us move past them and grow. When you're ready, tuck your toes under, lift your hips, come to downward facing dog again. And this time, inhale nice and big. Again, our awareness is on moving and letting our breath lead us. I'm teaching you, I'm telling you what's coming next, but your breath is leading you. So inhale. And then close off your airspace and exhale that breath by walking your hands back towards your feet. And stay folded in half as you massage all of that air out. Bend your knees slightly and push your feet into the ground at the bottom of your exhale so that you can use your glutes on the inhale to open up into mountain pose. Reach up, look up, sip in all the air. Look how big I've gotten to make space for air. Fill it up, full, 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 full. And then when you're done and you need to get rid of that air, fold it out. Literally massage it out. Fold yourself in half, draw your shoulder blades down, your gaze is through your knees, massage the air out. Now let it lead you. When you need more, push your feet into the ground so that your glutes lift you up and make space for that air. Do it again. Fold in half. Your knees are soft this entire time, and you get rid of all of that air in the forward fold. Your inhale initiates mountain pose. Feet press into the ground and you open up. And we're going to add on to this flow. Your exhale folds you out. We're going to add twists in, and you generally exhale on a twist. So initiate your inhale into mountain. Inhale nice and tall. Your exhale twists you to the right. Get rid of all the air, all the air, all the air. And then when you need more air, come center. And then send that twist to the left. When you need more air, inhale, center, open up, look up, and then exhale, fold it out. And then push your feet into the ground. Now you start repeating that flow in your time with your lung capacity. This is why if we were all in the same room, we would all be moving at different times, because we all have a different lung capacity. We all have different oxygen saturations. All of our alveoli, which is the place where actual gas exchange takes place, are different and different sizes, and we have different numbers of them. None of this would be happening. We would all be kind of off and doing our own thing, which is kind of God's design. I think that's why he made us all look different and think different and have different gifts. So finish out your full flow doing all of those 5 movements, and then we will meet together in a forward fold at the back of your mat. So finish out those movements. Listen to the soundtrack of your breath. Keep noticing what it feels like to connect the breath with the movement. And then when you're ready, hang out, literally hang out in a forward fold. So you can bend your knees or as much or as little as you want. In fact, the deeper you bend the knees and the more you move your weight into the tops of your feet, the more you will traction your spine. And I want you to take your mind's eye to the middle of your back this time. I don't want you to send breath there. Now, we've already talked about what it means to send breath to a space. So envision with your mind's eye your thoracic vertebrae leading up to your neck. Pull your shoulders away from your ears and look through your knees so that from the mid back all the way through the top of your head, you're tractioning now. And as you send that big, long, deep inhale and exhale to that space, draw your awareness to the vertebrae. This is what it means to send breath to that space. And then notice as you exhale, that release. What does the sensation of that release feel like in your body? As you're ready, come to a halfway lift. That's how you're going to feel, because you're making space in your body. You'll straighten your legs, and then your exhale will walk you out to a downward facing dog. Press your hands in, push your chest towards your thighs by pushing your hands into the floor. Gaze is through the knees. When you're ready, draw your right knee into your chest only. Now, don't change anything else. You'll feel a great amount of pressure in your right hand and wrist. Push it down into the ground so your wrist isn't taking the pressure. And then move through a plank pose. Lift up on that back heel and set your foot down. And find the beginning of a crescent lunge. So that was on an exhale because you kind of cut off the breath space with your knee. So now push that right foot into the ground and lift on an inhale into a crescent lunge. So in a crescent lunge, your back heel is lifted. Push your legs into the ground. We're starting to feel now what it looks like to send breath now to a very active space. So send the breath into where it's releasing. For us right now in this crescent lunge, I'm going to switch sides so you can see me. It's right here in this front of the back thigh. So as you soften the tailbone down, as you push the back leg into the ground, you'll feel a release in the front of the thigh. Draw your mind's eye and attention to that space. Push your right foot into the ground. Draw your mind's eye and your attention to your hamstrings engaging. On your inhale, fill up, and let's take a twist again. So we're going to twist to our right, towards the front leg. And in this twist, we're going to kind of try to pull that back hip back. We're not going to let it follow us. We're going to pull that back a little bit, but soften the tailbone down so that our SI joint doesn't get pressure. And take a few deep breaths. Now, notice what it feels like to take a few deep breaths in a space that's kind of twisted and closed off. Notice as you find the rhythm of that breath that you might, on the inhale, pull out of the twist a little bit because your lungs are going, hey, I need space. And then you go deeper into the twist on the exhale. Just notice. You don't have to change it. Just notice it. And then drop your right hand back to your left thigh. Make this a back bend and open up as you look up in your spine. Hold a few deep breaths here. Fill all the way up with air, fill your lungs with air, and then your exhale is going to bring your hands down and your right foot back to downward facing dog. Now, if you're experienced with yoga and want this to be harder, you can vinyasa. And if you know what that means, go for it. Otherwise, we're meeting in downward facing dog. If you don't know what vinyasa means, if you don't know what it means to put a sun salutation in between, don't worry about it. Just hang in down dog. We'll all meet there. And this time we'll bring our left knee into our chest. Just notice how you're now having to push into your left arm more because you lost a base of movement. Focusing on the breath helps us keep our alignment, even though we've changed our base of support. And then on the exhale, move through a plank pose, lift in your right foot and set your left foot down. Prepare for the crescent lunge. So push that left foot into the ground, get rid of all the air, And because we're making space, we're lifting up on the inhale into crescent lunge. And then we notice, right? We start to send our breath to the different spaces in our body. Let your mind's eye notice that front side of the back leg that's getting a stretch. Let your mind's eye think of, as we soften our tailbone down, making space in our low back, engaging our belly in towards our belly button. That's called engaging your core. You're going to fill up your breath, you're going to fill up your lungs, and then when you need to exhale that air, that's when you make this a twist towards the left leg. Not when I tell you to, but when you need to exhale. And then notice something different this time. Notice something different as we inhale and as we exhale in this twist. Just note. What's a new sensation you're feeling? How, in this very deeply engaged, difficult posture, can you find ease? As you're ready, let your left hand come down to your right thigh. Make this a back bend now. Try, even though you're significantly moving in the posture, not to shift in your low body. Fill up all the air. And then exhale. Those hands are going to find your way to the ground. And you're either going to make it a push-up and move through a vinyasa, or you're just going to move to downward facing dog. Maybe you need a little bit of a break. You drop to your knees and you come to child's pose, or just a tabletop that's modified if child's pose is not available for you. Take 5 deep breaths, either in your child's pose or in your downward facing dog, depending on which you're practicing. And this time I want you to send your breath, take your mind's eye to your low back. Take your mind's eye, if you can think of an old school skeleton in your health class, soften the tailbone down. Feel how that makes your belly engage, and imagine how that makes space for tractioning all 5 lumbar vertebrae. Gravity is pulling down towards your head. Your gaze is towards your knees. And now you've got one long line that's getting traction. As you take that long, deep breath, send the breath, send your awareness, send that healing release of tension to that area. And now we're going to move in that flow. And what we're going to do is we're going to move one breath to one movement. We're going to see what that feels like now. Instead of moving really slow, we're going to take our mind's eye to continually moving with our breath and move one movement to breath. So either join me in downward facing dog if you're not there already, or from downward facing dog, we're going to take that hands and walk them all the way back towards the feet. We're going to start from the very beginning. So exhale, fold it out. Inhale, push the feet in. Exhale, take a twist to the right. Inhale, come center. Your breath moves you, not my words. Exhale to the other side. Inhale, come center. Look up a little bit. And then exhale, fold out all the air. The purpose of the movement is to work with the breath. Your inhale walks you to downward facing dog, and you settle in with an exhale. Inhale. Exhale, steps that right foot through, push the foot into the ground, finish the exhale, empty, 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 empty. And then the lift sips in that air for you. Exhale is toward the front thigh in a twist. And then when you need more air, make it a back bend and make space for that air. Both legs equally pushing into the ground still. Once you're full, you get rid of the air by finding your hands to the mat, and you either flow through a push-up or move to downward facing dog. 2 long deep breaths here. Your next inhale. Fill it up. Your exhale draws your left foot in and you step it through. You finish that exhale completely. You push that left foot into the ground so that it lifts you through your glutes, so your belly and core are free to inhale. And then when you need to get rid of the air, turn towards that left leg now. When you need more air, lift and make it a back bend. And then as you're ready, when you are ready to get rid of all that air that you've sipped in, you'll close off that space by finding the ground. You'll either flow through or you'll go straight to downward facing dog. 2 long deep breaths here. Now I'm going to guide you through flowing that, but I'm not going to model it intentionally. I would love for you to tune into your own body. Don't look at me moving. Inhale, fill in downward facing dog. Exhale, the knee steps through. Inhale, crescent lunge. Push against the ground to lift up. Exhale, take a twist in that crescent lunge. Shoulders come out of the ears. Inhale, make it a back bend. Lift the left arm towards the sky. And then your exhale finds your hands to the floor. Take your choice of in-between movement. From downward facing dog. Fill up your lungs. Left knee on the exhale steps all the way through and crescent lunge lifts you in to a deep inhale. And then take an exhale, twist towards that left leg. Your inhale opens you up. Your right arm lifts towards the sky this time. And then when you're ready to get rid of that air, the breath goes just a little bit before you. Let it lead you out of that movement all the way down to the floor. Take your variation of the transition and meet in downward facing dog. Now you have a choice. If you're brand new to yoga and your wrists hurt or you just want to stop moving for a moment, you go into child's pose. Otherwise, you have about 90 seconds to flow, 90 seconds to 2 minutes. Just flow. If you know what that means, that's you choosing to repeat those movements I just taught you. Self-guided. Me no longer talking about how to move or when to move, but you taking the authority over your body and you moving, guided yourself in the movement. This dance, this flow that you're doing, you are allowing the beyond comprehension, the beyond understanding, processing of your experiences. There's a reason multiple times God tells us in the Bible that his peace and his love and his grace surpasses understanding. It surpasses understanding. It's beyond our understanding. We won't be able to process it. We won't be able to think like he does, and we won't be able to fully know until we're with him again. When you're ready to kind of complete that flow, find a downward facing dog. That's where we're going to meet. Downward facing dog, or if that is, if you're just kind of done with that because you're not used to that shape, just take a child's pose and take that weight off of your hands and your wrist. Take a couple of long, deep breaths there. Just allow, if your heart rate was kind of up because you were moving with those large groups of muscles, just give a moment for your heart rate to come down. One last tractioning of the spine. And next, we're going to be going into pigeon. So if you like a face down pigeon, move your right knee through your hands and take it. I'm going to be moving on to our back. So from downward facing dog, find your way all the way onto your backside. Soles of the feet on the mat, and you're going to take a pigeon in a reclined way. So you're going to cross your right leg over, kind of like a gentleman would sitting in a chair. And then you're going to reach through there and grab the front of your shin or the back of your hamstrings, whatever is within your reach. And then with this shape, you're just going to start to send the breath to all the places you're unnecessarily tense. So let me walk you through a few of those places. Your brow. Your brow has nothing to do with this pose. Soften it with your breath. Send your mind's eye and awareness while deep breathing to that space. Your jaw. Your shoulders, soften them down. They're not a big part of this. Sometimes doing that will help if you roll your eyes in your head and then maybe start to rock side to side with your legs just a little bit, kind of settling in, if you will, to the pose. And then as you settle into the pose, maybe stop rocking a little bit and send that breath, that awareness into your hip, deep, deep into your hip, where you're experiencing the sensation of this pose. Where do you feel it? In the bottom of your hip, more towards the edge of your sacrum, or do you feel it more in your outer thigh, low back area? Wherever you are experiencing that sensation, send the breath. Meaning, send your awareness and your mind's eye with your long, deep breathing at the same time to that space where you're experiencing the sensation. And as your mind's eye focuses on that space where you're experiencing the sensation, you may find that tension starts to release. And then let that whole shape fall off to the left. So you'll release your hands, and then you'll just start to let that shape fall off to the left and take a twist. So your right hip will pop up off the mat. You'll start to feel sensation pulling on your sacrum and low back. The goal generally is to anchor your right arm back towards the mat and then just kind of let gravity and your breath pull you into a twist. And really, let's let that happen. So don't pull yourself. Don't use your attention to make muscular tension and pull yourself in half. Rather, while you're in the shape, go limp. And you'll notice that in the twist, as you inhale, you might pull out of the twist a little bit. And then as you take long, deep exhales, you'll move deeper into the twist. Just take your mind's eye to that experience internally and just let your thoughts get wrapped up in that. In Matthew chapter 6, in the Message paraphrase, he talks about prayer and he says, just go find a quiet place and be there as simply and honestly as you can manage. And as you do that and focus your directed thought on God, your attention will begin to shift from all the concerns and cares to his grace. And his grace will overshadow all of the concerns. That's the peace that passes understanding. See, your circumstance didn't change. Your focus changed. And then answers will begin to percolate, to bubble up through his calm peace that guards your heart and mind. Now just come to center and switch that whole thing. So we're just going to do those two things again. This time our left leg is going to cross like a man would in a chair, and then you're just going to pull that shape towards the center. And you're going to do that process again now that you know how. You're going to rock side to side, start to do an inventory of places you might feel tension. And once you feel the need to move back and forth, kind of dissipate, and you want to settle in, soften the back of your neck, roll your eyes back in your head, send your breath, your mind's eye, your awareness, while deep breathing, to that space that you want to let go and release. As it would feel good to you on your next time that you need to get rid of all the air, then you just take a twist. You just let that whole shape fall to your right. This time you'll kind of let your left shoulder anchor back towards the ground. Maybe you look over toward the left shoulder, getting the cervical vertebrae involved, so that from the bottom of your tailbone all the way through the top of your head, all those places that we created space and we tractioned and we allowed our muscular tension to stop wrapping around the spine so that gravity could pull on it and traction it. Now we're twisting out. We're pulling in a different direction, allowing tension to be pulled out of those spaces. Again, doing that while thinking and breathing at the same time may release an emotion that was being stored there, may release a lie, a memory might come up. And then our breath allows us to allow whatever that is to just percolate up, even if it comes with discomfort. And our deep focus and awareness on God in this moment can allow that memory, that discomfort to pass. And we just begin to have tools to do this when we're off our mat. We have tools to then, when someone says something that hurts us, or we experience some pain somewhere, we learn to do this process in our daily lives. So as you're ready, begin to come to center. I am going to speak some scripture over you. I'm going to repeat our final scripture one more time. And what usually would happen is I would pray and I would guide you out of laying on your mat to a seated position, and you would go about your day. And today I'm going to read to you, and then I'm just going to end the class so that you can spend as much time in your final pose. It's called corpse because you don't try anymore. So let your legs go out, let them just fall open, let your arms be down by your side, and I will just read to you and exit so that you could remain there for 2 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever your schedule allows. And then you, with your breath, guide yourself to the next place your schedule allows for you today. So just let your eyes close, let your eyes roll back in your head, just soften down into your final pose. Philippians 4:1, he begins to say, "My dear and precious friends, whom I deeply love, you have truly become my glorious joy and crown of reward. Now, arise in the fullness of your union with the Lord." And then he later in the chapter says, "Don't be pulled in different directions or worried about a thing. Be saturated in prayer throughout each day, offering your faith-filled requests before God with overflowing gratitude. Tell him every detail of your life. Then God's wonderful peace that transcends human understanding will make the answers known to you through Jesus Christ. So keep your thoughts continually fixed on all that is authentic and real, honorable and admirable, beautiful and respectful, pure and holy, merciful and kind, and fasten your thoughts on every glorious work of God, praising him always. Follow the example of all that we have imparted to you, and the peace and the God of peace will be with you in all things."